Welcome to Newmarket Battlefield State Historical Park in Newmarket, Virginia. We're in the middle portion of the Shenandoah Valley, and there is a fight that happens here in the spring of 1864. So you're joining the American Battlefield Trust. Thank you for watching our 1864 160-year anniversary coverage. Now we're a few months beyond the Battle of Newmarket's anniversary, but we wanted to show you some sites around this area and talk about those spring campaigns that really set the stage for what happens in the autumn months of 1864 as well. Now before these sites were battlefields, they were farms. And to talk about the farm that we're standing on right now, I want to introduce Sarah Hebert, who is the Assistant Site Director and Educator here at the battlefield. Sarah?
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Well, welcome to the Bushong Farm. Like Sarah said, this is where the Battle of Newmarket happened in May of 1864, but long before that, this was a family farm. This is where the Bushong family makes their home. Sarah and Jacob Bushong were married in 1818 and built their first home on the property, which is still standing today. And as they grow their farm and their family, they're going to expand their housing as well. They built the southern part of their house in 1825 and the northern part of the house in 1852. Together, they have 6 children. 4 of those children lived to adulthood. And in May of 1864, they have 2 of their adult children with them during the Battle of Newmarket. They are sheltering right here in the cellar. We know this because they said they could see the feet of the VMI cadets go by as they are charging forward to fill in that gap in the Confederate line. By 1864, Sarah and Jacob, who were those newlyweds in 1818, their grandma and grandpa, so along with their adult daughter, Elizabeth, they have her brother Anderson and his wife, also Elizabeth, and their 2 children, Sarah Caroline and Willie, who were about 6 and 4 at the time of the battle. 3 enslaved persons were likely on or near the property at the time. Mary and Israel are an enslaved mother and son. Israel's about 6 years old when this battle happened, and then there is an unnamed man who shows up on the records as well. But we don't know exactly where they were. The Bushongs did not write that during the Battle of Newmarket. But this is where they are, is sheltering in their home, like I'm sure many people would. You don't know where to go during a battle, so they are going to continue to live here many years after the battle as they did the many years before.
Thank you, Sarah. And it's such a helpful reminder to remember that these places are farms. The Shenandoah Valley is farmland. As we've mentioned in our overview video, there is a vast amount of agricultural wealth in the Shenandoah Valley region. Approximately 20% of the grain grown in Virginia is in this region on the eve of the Civil War. And part of that supply area, strategic area, is going to be what puts the Shenandoah Valley as a targeted area during the Civil War. And 1864 is no different. While we have Union General Ulysses S. Grant coming east and devising plans that will put pressure on multiple points of the Confederacy, and particularly in Virginia, he wants to avoid Confederate armies to be able to shift reinforcements to each other. Part of his plan includes sending an army into the Shenandoah Valley to tie up Confederate troops in this region. Remember, this is an area that Confederates have liked to defend. They have won a lot of victories here in 1862 and 1863. So Ulysses S. Grant is going to order Union General Franz Sigel to take approximately 6,000 troops, march south in the Shenandoah Valley. He has one job. It's supposed to be super easy. Get to the city of Stanton, which is a railroad hub. It's a supply base. It's a hospital town for the Confederacy. It will also put a Union army that could arrive in Stanton in position to possibly cross the Blue Ridge Mountains, be able to coordinate further with Grant and Meade as the Army of the Potomac is undertaking what we now call the Overland Campaign in the central part of Virginia. Franz Sigel is a German-American immigrant. He arrives in the United States 12 years prior to the Battle of Newmarket. And he has been out west. He's passionate for the Union cause. He supports the Republican Party in politics. He doesn't have a lot of battlefield victories to his name, though. In fact, he's more associated with defeats. But the German-American community loves him, and they want him in command of an army. Abraham Lincoln is looking to win German-American votes for the 1864 presidential election, decides to put Sigel in command of the Army. To oppose Sigel's advance into the Shenandoah Valley, we have Confederate General John C. Breckinridge. He was Vice President of the United States during the Buchanan administration, and then turns general as the Civil War begins. He has been involved with military actions out in the Western Theater. He's moved to Virginia after he gets in conflict with Braxton Bragg, like a lot of Confederate generals do. We're walking through parts of the Bushong barnyard here. I just got attacked by a bug, but I think we're good to continue. Breckinridge is going to pull together a force of approximately 4,000 men to confront Sigel's advance into the Shenandoah Valley. We're going to pause here by the gate and take in the shade and the view. And Breckinridge is going to be bringing 2 brigades of troops up from the Southwest Virginia area. Then he's also going to be pulling together troops from the Shenandoah Valley region. He follows up on an offer from the superintendent at Virginia Military Institute, located in Lexington, Virginia, approximately 84 miles from where we stand, 84 miles south of where we stand at Newmarket today. He asked the Corps of Cadets, young men, many of them in their teens, to come and join his army, intending to use them as a reserve force. Breckinridge has scrambled together this army. There's Union cavalry and troops going into other parts of the department that he is charged with defending out through West Virginia, as Union raiders commanded by George Crook and William Averill head toward the Virginia and Tennessee Railroad and Saltville. But Breckinridge is going to bring this force into the Shenandoah Valley to oppose Sigel. Helpful to Breckinridge, though, Sigel moves slowly in his advance south in the Shenandoah Valley. He delays with rain. He delays for extra training days. This gives Breckinridge time to bring that army together, rally them in the city of Stanton, and then start marching northward toward the middle, or more into the middle portion of the Shenandoah Valley. Breckinridge is getting information from Cavalry Commander John Imboden, who's keeping an eye on what Sigel is doing. We're walking through the orchard here, and if we look off to our right, you may be able to catch a glimpse of Newmarket Gap. It's a bit hazy today. Hopefully it's showing up well, or maybe we can put a picture on the screen so it's a bit easier to see. This mountain that we're looking at is called Massanutten Mountain. It runs from Strasburg in the Shenandoah Valley to Harrisonburg in the Shenandoah Valley, and really the only place that you can cross a military force over this mountain sitting in the middle of the valley is Newmarket Gap. So there's some strategic significance to this area. Sigel is going to send out a cavalry force. There's going to be skirmishing that happens in the area on May 13th, right in the Newmarket area at the base of Newmarket Gap. On May 14th, Sigel is going to send a brigade-sized detachment. He's cobbled together various regiments, but it's about a brigade size. He's going to send them south from Woodstock, the village of Woodstock. He's sending them south toward the Newmarket area. John Imboden's going to fight delaying action against this Union force. By the end of the day, the Confederates will have given up the town of Newmarket, but they've held on to a piece of high ground that sits just to the southwest of the village. This high ground is called Shirley's Hill. Imboden is in contact with Breckinridge, telling him, "I've held a piece of high ground. This is the opportunity to bring up the army and fight a battle against Sigel." But Sigel now has his force strung out for nearly 20 miles along the Valley Pike, modern-day Route 11. As May 15th comes and dawns, it's going to be a rainy Sunday in the middle of the Shenandoah Valley, and a day that battle is going to come to the farms and village of Newmarket. Breckinridge is going to bring up his entire force, using the high ground of Shirley's Hill to hide how many troops he has. He'll do some strategy, some deception, trying to get the Union troops to think that he has more men than he does. The Union troops who are in the Newmarket area set up a skirmish line. There's artillery firing that happens, but there's a delay until about noon with this small fighting happening, but no major attacks. Breckinridge makes a decision based on two new pieces of information that he has received. He has heard that the raids into the other parts of his department, Crook and Averill's raids, those have been turned back. Those Union forces are not currently a threat. He has also heard and received a message from General Robert E. Lee, who's fighting around Spotsylvania Courthouse, telling him that his new objective is to defeat Sigel and come reinforce Lee's army. With this change of objectives, Breckinridge is going to alter his battle plans from defensive to offensive. He's going to put his troops in a long line of battle and move them forward, probably around noon on May 15th. They're going to sweep through positions like Manners Hill, where the Union has a line, the River Road position, and then they're going to come up into this area where we are today, around the Bushong Farm. Now, at the time of the battle, there was not a freeway cutting through the fields of the Bushong Farm. This is Interstate 81, and although it is unfortunate that the highway cuts through the battlefield, there were some things that were shifted so that at least the highway is over there. It was going to go right through the Bushong farmyard area, but thanks to the work of some early preservationists in the area, it is not on top of the Bushong house vicinity. May 15th, 1864, though, Confederate line is sweeping into this area. Union regiments have been pushed into retreat, but now Sigel is arriving on the field for the first time. He had had a difficult morning. Remember, he's still miles away. It's going to take him time to get up to the battle area. He's going to bring with him some fresh troops, and I use that term loosely. They haven't engaged in battle yet, but they've just marched over 10 miles, some of them close to 20 miles to get to this field. Now, where we're standing today is part of the Confederate line at the Bushong Farm. So stretching off in the distance where you can see the far tree line, Confederate troops in that direction. Just to the other side of the tree line is a steep drop-off to the Shenandoah River. It's going to make it difficult to do any flanking movements on this side of the line. You can use the split rail fence to help you visualize an area where the Confederate troops are coming through. I'm going to ask Andy to follow me, so the camera will now be looking to the east. The Confederate line is going to continue to stretch across. Imagine the highway's not here. It's going to reach all the way to the Valley Pike, that good macadamized road that runs north-south in the Shenandoah Valley. Just beyond the Valley Pike, and we may have some B-roll in here so you can see it as well, is a tree line which shows the location of Smith Creek, a small stream running through the area that is known and prone to flood rapidly in times of heavy rain. And there's been rain in the spring of 1864. Breckinridge's line is going to come into this area, but it's stretched thin. He has to cover quite a bit of ground here. And the Union troops who are in position across the field, and their lines also stretching across where the interstate is over to the Valley Pike, cavalry on what would be their far left side or flank. Their line is here, and these Union troops are not yet ready to retreat. Again, they're ready to put up a fight. Union regiments are going to make disjointed attacks toward the Confederate lines. As the Confederate troops shift to counter these attacks, a gap opens up in Breckinridge's line right about the area where we're standing now. Over to this side, we have Woodson's Missourians. They're a small unit of men, formerly prisoners of war who've been exchanged. They don't want to go back and fight in Trans-Mississippi, so they decide to stay here in Virginia. They're going to take heavy losses at the Battle of New Market. Some of the veterans will come back after the war and, with the permission of the Bushong family, erect this monument to show that they were here, they fought, they took high losses here at the battle. So units stretching thin, gap opens in Breckinridge's line, and he has to make a decision. Will he put in Augusta County reserves, older men without much military training, to help fill the line, or can he use a trained force from a military school, the Virginia Military Institute Cadets? He decides to put the cadets into the fight. His quote, as it comes to us recorded through history, is, "Put in the boys, and may God forgive me for the order." The Virginia Military Institute Cadets have briefly come under fire as they marched down the north face of Shirley's Hill, following in reserve of Breckinridge's army. They followed in that reserve position up to this point when the orders come to them. They are going to make a rush across the fields from where we see the modern museum today. Their companies will split around the Bushong farm. They will come through the orchard that you are looking at and take position along a split rail fence like the one we see here today. The cadets will be under fire. They are exchanging shots with Union troops out in the field ahead of us. This would be a wheat field, probably a plowed field. It's muddy with the rain. You can see how the field forms a bit of a basin. Even today, water after heavy rain will gather in that low area. The VMI cadets, along with other Confederate regiments on Breckinridge's line, are beginning to realize that to stay in this position is not going to gain them anything. Perhaps it's time to make a charge, to make an offensive movement. There's battle smoke hanging in the area, deteriorating weather. Many of these units will later write as though their unit is the only one they know about in the action. Very likely with the weather and battle smoke that is hanging in the area. The cadets will order a charge, fixing bayonets, charging across this open field that becomes known as the Field of Lost Shoes, because the deep mud on this field is going to pull the shoes off the feet of cadets and soldiers fighting and crossing this field. Other Confederate regiments are making similar attacks probably around the same time. We're going to have the 51st Virginia charging up the slope closer to the tree line at the river drop-off. There's attacks over on the other side of the Confederate line as well. The Union line will be pushed into their final retreat here at the Battle of New Market. Franz Sigel will get his army off the field, in part with the help of Captain Henry DuPont, who brings forward artillery and uses them in a mobile, firepower fashion to help hold off the Confederates as the Union Army is retreating toward the bridge over the Shenandoah River at Mount Jackson. They will reach it by nightfall. The army crosses over, burning the bridge after them, preventing Breckinridge, the Confederates, and the cadets from pursuing them further. Breckinridge, though, has accomplished his goal. He has sent Sigel into a retreat. Breckinridge has won a victory in the Shenandoah Valley for the Confederates, and he is now able to shift troops eastward across the Massanutten Mountain, across the Blue Ridge Mountains, to join Robert E. Lee in the Overland Campaign. The Confederate victory at New Market buys a little bit of time for the Confederates in the valley, but in a matter of weeks, the same Union troops that fought here at New Market, although with a different commander, will be marching through the region again, continuing a southward push into this strategic region. The Virginia Military Institute Cadets do not join Robert E. Lee's army as a fighting force. They do go east, they visit the city of Richmond. If I remember correctly, they're given a new flag, then they're going to return to Virginia Military Institute in Lexington, Virginia. They'll only be there a short time before another Union force gets to that area of the valley and they are forced to move. Following the end of the Civil War, Virginia Military Institute rebuilds in Lexington, continues to this day, and some of the traditions observed by the cadets are drawn from the experience that happened, that they took part in on May 15th, 1864. It's part of the longer story of memory, Civil War memory in the Shenandoah Valley and from the Battle of New Market. Now, we're going to take a pause here because we've overviewed the battle, but I want to show you a few things on the Union side of the line. So we will see you on the other side of Field of Lost Shoes in just a second. We're now standing on what's known as Bushong Hill. Behind me, you can see Field of Lost Shoes. You may be able to see the buildings of the Bushong farm, catch a glimpse of the split rail fence, which marks part of the Confederate line where the Virginia Military Institute cadets were during the Battle of New Market. Now we're on the opposite side of the field. We're on the Union side of the line. We've got New Market Gap behind me. No, their line doesn't extend all the way out there, but it is a reminder of the strategic importance of this area where the battle is unfolding on May 15th, 1864. Now, I already gave you the spoilers of how the battle ends, but I wanted to show you the field from the Union perspective. It's a beautiful view, but you can see up here on the high ground, we find artillery. We have some marker cannons out here. You would find Snow's Maryland Battery, Carlin's West Virginia Battery, and then we have an infantry line stretching down, run it beyond the modern day interstate into the area that's known as Bloody Cedars. You can walk over there by going through a tunnel that actually goes under the modern highway, and you can explore that eastern side of the battlefield. I highly recommend it. Next to the artillery up here on Bushong Hill and moving down along the Union line, we have the 34th Massachusetts Regiment. We're going to make a charge out into this field before the attack of the Confederates and the charge of the VMI cadets. But you have a Union charge sweeping out into the field. About where the interstate is, we have the 1st West Virginia Infantry. They will also make an attack. And finally, the infantry on the Union's left flank or left side is the 54th Pennsylvania Regiment. They will say they stay on the field longest in the Battle of Newmarket. They are on the side along the Valley Pike. They also make an attack out into the field, which is a rocky pasture owned by the Strayers. We now call it Bloody Cedars. Later, after the battle, veterans of the 54th Pennsylvania will return and place a monument here on the field at Newmarket to remember the deeds and the fallen comrades here. But this is the infantry line that Sigel is going to establish with these newer troops that he's bringing in. Other regiments had fallen back from the fights on around Shirley's Hill and Manners Hill, River Road. This is Sigel's last line that will be established. Sigel has a difficult day. His temper is starting to flare. His frustration rises. He begins calling orders in German, which is unfortunately not helpful for communicating with officers who speak English. He does have an entire regiment that doesn't engage. He also has units that do not even come up to the Newmarket battlefield. Where Breckinridge puts in his total force and is putting everything he's got on the battlefield in that long line of battle, Sigel has still piecemealed his army into this fight, and it has those disastrous consequences. Sigel does take his survivors off the field. He still has an intact army that will fight again in the Shenandoah Valley, although not under his command. Now, as we've walked down off Bushong Hill, coming across the view that perhaps the 34th Massachusetts would have seen, although much rainier, much more battle smoke on the scene than this beautiful summer day that we're out here, we are approaching a marker cannon that represents von Kleiser's guns. Von Kleiser has 5 guns when he's in this approximate position during the Battle of Newmarket. One of his cannons will be captured by the Virginia Military Institute Cadets as they make the charge across the field. You may be able to look across, and easier now to spot the Bushong farm just to the south, that split rail fence, the basin of ground. This is the area that those VMI cadets would have come charging up with fixed bayonets into the battery of von Kleiser. Von Kleiser may have already been getting ready to pull his cannon off the field. The cadets will capture 1 gun. He'll retreat with 4 others. He had lost a cannon previous in the battle. But the cadets will seize that gun. They will climb on the cannon itself or on the caisson, and they're waving the flag of Virginia Military Institute. One of the moments that goes into Civil War memory, Virginia Military Institute memory, Shenandoah Valley memory of the American Civil War. As you can see, Newmarket Battlefield State Historical Park is preserved in a pristine way. I encourage you to come out and visit. There are other portions of Newmarket Battlefield that have been preserved by Shenandoah Valley Battlefields Foundation. There are trails that have been added to that area as well. There's a lot to see and explore in this area. If you come to the Battlefield State Park where we're at today, you can walk across the field where Confederates charged, where Massachusetts men charged. You can come see these marker cannons for yourself. Look at how the terrain rolls. Consider how it plays a part in the battle that unfolds here in the spring of 1864. Newmarket Battlefield has an important chapter in early battlefield preservation. George Collins, who is a graduate of Virginia Military Institute, class of 1911, he makes a purchase of this land that we're standing on today in the mid-20th century. He makes efforts so that the interstate does not cut across the actual site of the farm buildings. And then when he passes away, in his will, he leaves money for the Virginia Museum of the Civil War to be built. And he says that this ground is to be used as a memorial and as a place of education for all time. So an early chapter of battlefield preservation. Come out and explore it for yourself and join us as we continue to talk about 1864 campaigns and battles in the Shenandoah Valley. I want to thank Sarah Hebert, who joined us at the beginning of this video, Andy filming behind the camera. I'm Sarah K. Bierle with the American Battlefield Trust. Thank you for what you do to support education and preservation at American battlefields.
Hello, this is Trace Atkins. To stay up to date on all the latest and coolest videos, please subscribe to the Trust's YouTube channel. Preserve, educate, inspire.